There are 45 chairs in this tube. I counted. Did you know that? Did I tell you that? There's 45 chairs in this count. Oh, no, I just counted. Well, not including 45 others. 45, 46, somewhere there. That's interesting. Yeah. Whatever we did, that goes.
Good evening. Welcome to the regular City Council meeting of December 21st, 2015, the special work session. Call the meeting to order. We do have a quorum. Public forum. Individuals may address the City Council about items not included on the agenda. Speakers are required to state their name and their address for council records and limit their remarks to 3 minutes or less. Speakers are requested to frame their comments around items that fall within the authority of the City Council. During the City Council will not take official action on items discussed at this time. May place the item on file, take the matter under advisement, refer the matter to staff or committee for future report, direct the matter to be placed on the upcoming agenda. Before the public forum tonight, I'm sure there's a lot of people here for the holiday decorations, displays on public property or city-owned property. So just to set, we've been hearing quite a few things, people complaining about not being able to do it on a private property. This has nothing to do with private property. The decorations that are in discussion are on city-owned property in the city-owned parks. The private property is, you know, your guys. You can do whatever you wish on your own property with, you know, as long as it's legal with the sign sizes or whatever on that order. And that the lines displays, not necessarily we throw them out in their ear. They requested to be, you know, February 1st, and that's what everything is coming to an end at February 1st, and then the council will work and discuss and come up with a plan or policies on if we want to continue with displays on public property or not. So we will open it up. Did you have anything else, John?
I just want to add one thing. We did get a request to remove item C from this work session agenda. It's the seasonal display request from David and Gabriel Meyer. So that also is for item 9A in the regular council. So that will be scratched from the agenda.
Okay, thank you. Now for a public forum. You want to skip?
My name is Randall. Wait till I get up here. My name is Randall Bjerkness, and I live at 17059 Riverwood Drive. First of all, I want to thank the mayor and the council members for the opportunity to speak. Yes, Robin Hensel and myself have the right to free speech. She says she is a person of harmony and peace. Yes, in the past, the council was wrong on the bench deal. Shame on them. Robin, your benches look great and are very informational. Shame on you, though, that you have taken blood money for it. I'm taking this to heart, so. You say you want to help and inform people. I think that was wrong. Your website is so good that I found out by myself through it that I was in violation of the ordinance, which I did not know that it was supposed to be 48 inches high. I thought, you know, I could put my sign up here and it would be legal because it was just a narrow, long thing. I found out anyhow through your website that I was in violation before I even got the notice from the city in the mail. That's pretty pathetic. For this, I believe Robin Hensel is at war with the city or any government agency that will run over anyone in her way, including myself. She speaks of war in her deal. Yes, I think she's against the city or any government. Speaking of war, yes, it is against the law to drive and videotape going down the road by yourself. Please stop before someone gets injured. In light of all this, in my eyes, she is like a bloodsucker, using we the people as water and a government agency as her blood, which is money for her survival. Because of the Supreme Court holdings, can I keep the ordinance the same, only to add that only professionally made signs are acceptable, more pleasant to the eye. That is my biggest problem with you, Robin. Please make them pleasant. Okay, thank you for reminding me of the greatest show on earth so I could be here tonight. A little history. Hitler was going to undermine our countries with fake bonds and break them. Isn't this what she is trying to do to our city? I would have more to say, but I'm running out of time. So Merry Christmas to all. And once again, I thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak?
Dear members of the board, my name is Carren Miller. I live at 1005 11th Street, Southwest, Hensel Falls. I'm here to voice my concerns regarding the sign ordinance policy. It is to my understanding that after January 31st of this year, the Christmas display won't be allowed on city property, let alone any display. As I've read through some of the stuff, I disagree with your actions on this, just because one person seems to intimidate you. What I find intimidating is the 40-some pages of the sign ordinance policy. Not Robin Hensel. I'm not here to take anyone's rights away from them. However, it must be said that the second Robin decided to put her display up in Memorial Park and you as a city voted and said it was okay, you took that right away from me and other people. That is a public park. If I want to go there anytime on any part of it, I have that right. If you read through Ordinance 10.20, it states, a person shall not dig in or otherwise disturb grass areas or in any other way injure or impair natural beauty or usefulness of any area. It also states, no one will engage in loud, boisterous, threatening, abusive, insulting, or indecent language or engage in any disorderly conduct or behavior in breach of the public peace. Is Robin? Yes. She posted her signs through the ground, offended the troops, and offended people's religions through her use of language. It also states no one can paste, glue, tack, or otherwise post any sign, placard, advertisement, or encryption, or nor shall any person erect or cause to be erected any sign on any public lands or roads adjacent to the park unless authorized by city engineer or the building official. So why can she? It states in one part of the sign ordinance policy that no one needs a permit from the city. I was told that Robin didn't. It also states in the sign ordinance that if it runs along a state trunk highway, she would need a policy from or a permit from the state as well. So does she? Does she have those permits? I was told she does not. My question is why one person can get away with going against things that are in our ordinances, seeing that this individual, Robin, wants to be fair for all. It took me just a few minutes to pull up the ordinances to see what is all wrong with what Robin is doing, and you as a board seem to think it'd be okay. So the other week I was struggling with my depression, and I have a difficult time leaving my apartment. But the other week I left my apartment. I was feeling down. When I saw the display at Labor Day Park, it brightened my mood, and when I drove around and looked at the lights and the displays, by the time I got home, I wasn't so depressed anymore. I look forward to the lights and displays by the Lions, and it helps me get through each year with my depression. I think there's a way to allow displays where it's not infringing on anyone's rights.
Time's up, Karen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak?
Robin Hensel, 807 First Street, Southeast. Constitutional scholar and First Amendment attorney Bruce Fine recently asked, where are today's necessary philosophers? One of those I will never be, but from my heart, can you hear the song of peace being drowned out by the blaring drumbeat of war? I am complimented for being labeled a heretic for peace. I am pleased to be turning community norms on their head. I am honored by some who refer to me as the Lioness of Minnesota. In the 1990s, Elmer Anderson, founder of ECM Publishers, helped to write their current mission statement. It reads in part, participating actively in community betterment, contributing to individual freedom, peace, and justice in the world. This is not being followed by the official newspaper of the city of Little Falls, the Morrison County Record. In a Christmas message for Little Falls in the year 2015, the writer said, quote, whether you like the United States Constitution or not, it is the bedrock upon which the nation was founded, unquote. In response, an online commenter wrote, quote, someone should explain the difference between provoking someone and educating someone to this editorial writer. I love how writers like this editorial one love to hide behind Jesus and love and Christianity whenever they cannot make a viable defense in a political argument, unquote. Another wrote, I think it all began with a decision by someone to enforce existing law in an arbitrary and unequal manner. In an attempt to silence one peace advocate, they opened up a can of worms, and then the city reacted in an uneducated way with a poorly constructed sign ordinance, and now things seem to be getting a fair amount of attention to the problems of unequal enforcement and free speech. Hensel seems to be providing a teaching moment, but the students don't seem willing to learn. Another wrote, in expressing her opinion, Ms. Hensel does support the troops in several ways. Above all, she does not want the young people from her country to be sent abroad to be injured, traumatized, or die. She questions the motives behind the country's military actions and one of the largest debacles in recent history, the invasion of Iraq, unquote. Another wrote, I consider myself a faithful Christian and I do not accept the premise that one community member is my enemy. All the city and the council needs to do is be fair. Christmas is just an illusion without lasting world peace, and it must begin in Palestine. Courage like cowardice can grow when an action by one person influences decisions by another, either toward bravery or fear. And in closing, to the community and to the council, with utmost sincerity, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do.
Anyone else wish to speak? Anyone else wish to speak before we move on? Hearing none, we'll move on to regular council items. Tablet, City Council.
Yeah, I think in an effort to help us, well, one in saving money, but moving more into a digital age, and likely, saving on the paper that we use to create these council packets and agenda for our agendas, looked at bringing up some possibilities for devices that the council could have and portability that they could take home with them, use at the council meeting so that they'd have something to have their council packets on so they wouldn't have to be delivering paper every week. So we looked into what the price for printing was for every council meeting, and it runs us about $250 strictly in the cost to print the packet. That's the staff time, the paper, the cost of printing alone. That's nothing to do with creating the packets, nothing else in even delivering the packets, because right now our police officers do that while they're on their active duties. So it's only for the cost of making the paper and the time spent by the staff person just in the printing and the collating and getting everything put together that wouldn't be associated if we moved to a digital format. So in order to do that, we looked at a couple different options. Looked at different tablets like an iPad or Dell's tablet or like the Samsung Galaxy Tab, and I think is the current one. The downfalls with those is that they're proprietary app driven, that there's applications that people create and you have to download on there. You can't take other software and add it to the device. So it really limits the kind of longevity of utilizing that device. So we looked at other things, the next step above that, which is kind of what is called a convertible unit. So basically a laptop and a tablet combined. So it adds more portability, but it has greater functionality like a laptop. And two products that we looked at were the Lenovo Yoga Pro and the Microsoft Surface Pro. Microsoft Surface Pro is a nice new device that Microsoft is creating, kind of adds that dual functionality. However, I think for bang for your buck or more cost-effective means is looking at the Yoga Pro. They're a little bit cheaper, they have a bigger screen size, and have all the functionality that the Surface Pro does, and just as much power and even more memory. So really, if we were going to implement that, that would be my recommendation, that be moving towards that unit. So we gathered some prices, looking at both the NJPA cooperative purchasing contract that we have, and through our local IT consultant, because he can also provide devices. So price we got with implementation would be about just over $1,100. I think the quotes attached in here, some of the prices were included before the formal quote was made. So he was making sure that he could get them from the vendors that he wanted. So I think I put in $893. It's actually $897.50 for the units. And then we would have the item number, quantity number in there is 11 because there would be one for each of the council members, so that's 8. Have one on each side of the desk for the staff to be utilizing during the council meetings. And the 11th one is actually for the new golf course manager because the computer system out there is running on Windows XP, so it's out of date. We can't continue to operate that. He would kind of like a device like this, and it would probably be just as functional and just as cost effective to provide him that. So, and then we'd also look at implementing Microsoft Office on the devices so that we could do Outlook calendars so that the council could have a dedicated email address for city business and do a shared calendar so that we could better help set up our meeting dates for times when we have special meetings like the budget hearing at the end of the year or other things that are going on throughout the year to coordinate those meetings, or even committee meetings that you usually have. So it kind of be a benefit to be able to have that software available. And then you'd also be able to do some Word documents, Excel, running Excel, other things like that with the device. So the original quote we thought we could get with a shared purchase agreement. I think the PD had a license agreement for Microsoft Office, but we've been running into some trouble with that. So we looked at a different price for, or a different means of delivering that, and that's why that price is now $230 in the formal quote versus what I had originally in the memo before I could get that changed. So I guess I'm looking for other input in terms of if we do utilize a basically generic city email address for each of the individual council seats. So you have one, a Ward 1 and a Ward 1A or Ward 1A, Ward 1B at cityoflittlepalls.com or something like that, because since you have two ward persons. And the device would stay with the position once, if you're no longer running for the seat or no longer filling that office, the device would stay with the city and we'd be able to use it for the next person. It would also help in kind of keeping that institutional memory alive with emails for that. So,
Mr. President, John, didn't you say that the return on investment would be about 2 years?
Yeah. So
for all of them.
Yep. If I don't know what if I'm looking at the further price, it might be pushing a little over 2 years now with the added a few extra dollars. We're right exactly on 2 years. But yeah, you take that $250 and you multiply that times the 24 meetings that we know we have every year. That's $6,000 a year. So if you eliminate $6,000 in ongoing expense and supplement it with these devices, they're not going to carry on that long. They're that much more added expense than with the printing costs. So there would be a return on that investment.
That's hard to tell because there could be repairs, there could be...
Yeah, you could have some ongoing maintenance, but yeah, if there was, strictly if there was nothing else that would add to the cost of those devices, that would be a 2-year payback versus
And just from
just the cost of it.
working in the school systems in 2 years, they're antiques.
I'd hope with, we aren't going to be, having 2 major high, processing or computing power needed for these, basically it's having email available, being able to craft and draft emails, maybe utilizing some Word and Excel, and then delivering the PowerPoint presentations in a shared method to, I think that would be an added benefit so that, as you're up there, you don't have to, all turn to the screen to look and watch the PowerPoint, which the resolutions are limited to what we can put on those projectors. You have the presentation right in front of you, and then you have all your packet stuff right in front of you as the meeting goes along as well. So, yes, I know the longevity of those devices isn't going to be 10, 20 years, but hopefully with not having too high of a demand on their functionality, they're going to get you more than 2 years. So, either way, I still think it would be a cost neutral endeavor.
I showed your choices to my son. He's a computer engineer.
Mm-hmm.
He recommended your Yoga Pro.
Mm-hmm.
He said screen size is just what it does. The cost, he says, according to around his realm of people,
yep.
That's the one they're all looking at.
Yep.
So.
And that was the recommendations that I got too. So, and the price there was comparable to what the NJPA contract was. So, the Surface, the biggest difference I see between the Surface and the Pro, other than the screen size, is that the Surface keyboard detaches, the Yoga's does not. It completely folds all the way over, or I guess they call it a tent mode, so you can kind of have it at an angle so it would stand up on its own. But you'd want a keyboard, a peripheral keyboard to utilizing it, because otherwise you're going to be pointing at trying to craft it. That it's challenging, I'm sure. So.
Anyone else got any questions, concerns? Nothing. It's on the regular agenda for tonight. Mayor's veto resolution 2015-95.
Yeah, Greg, could you pull that presentation? It's on the up there for me.
Yeah, this one right.
Yep. And we'll just, I guess, go into this a little. It's also on the agenda for tonight, and I'll go through it again. But when we had our last meeting, we were talking about the budget. We have some major expenses coming up in the next few years, and we talked about splitting, differentiating the costs in our water and sewer operations between the usage charge and the operating usage charge for the revenue, and then the operating expense to try to balance themselves out. So that's on the cost per gallon that people pay for their water, and then the cost per gallon that they're paying for the treatment of the wastewater stream that comes back. We have some major debt service and capital projects that are coming up both in water and sewer. And what you want in the base charge, this is the fixed monthly charge that the utility customers are going to pay every month, regardless of how much they use, just so long as they're connected. But this is the funds that you want to try to build up to ensure that they're paying for the ongoing debt service and capital expenses that are going on. So one of the things that we're really looking at in terms of the water and sewer was how many of these accounts do we have? What is their differentiation between, what's the commercial user, industrial user? On water, we're basing it off of the meter size, because the meter size is telling us how much demand that each of those customers are kind of taking to the system. Because in order for us to bring 5 million gallons of water to one of our customers, they have some pretty significant infrastructure costs in bringing that, and making that available, and as well as in the treatment of that water once it leaves. Even if it's, what they are doing is recycling and reusing and doing that as best as they can. So we're focusing on the water side, implementing a new meter structure. But on the sewer side, we have a pretty significant amount of existing debt service, and that we're looking at by 2022, some of that debt service falling off we're going to have some permitting and major capital improvement needs that are going to take place at the water treatment plant, or wastewater treatment plant, but we don't have the existing revenue streams coming in to help pay for them. So, we have about 4,000 utility customers right now to utilize. Currently, the apartments, we're only billing out for the actual apartment complexes themselves and giving them 1 meter charge per month. So that number is actually only 87 or 88, depending on different times during the year we've had that amount. So we weren't billing that sewer charge. So we're talking about implementing that as an additional sewer charge. So right now those 87 apartment owners are only paying $5.35 a month. We want to implement it so that they're paying per unit like they are the same for the water. So whatever their increase is going to be, it's going to be based on how many units they have multiplied times whatever the base charge is going to be. So right now our base charge being $5.35, well, that would be good enough to cover our capital improvement costs, less this $100,000 for the emergency maintenance. Right now, that's not something. It's a good thing to have in there, but I think it's something that we could budget for one time, sustain it in the improvement fund balance, and carry that forward until such time as we were spending it, and then we build it back up in later years. So it's something that, moving forward, I'm not including it as a calculation. So this upcoming year, less the emergency balance, we got $200,000 worth of improvements that we need to make to the capital improvement for the wastewater treatment or distribution. In 2017, we're down to under 200,000, closer to 150. We're down to 50 in 2018, 2019, but these are just planned out projections for fixed costs that we know we're going to have. With permitting changes and regulations, there might be something that are going to come up a lot sooner. But then in 2022, you can see that we've penciled in about $11 million worth of improvements for the wastewater treatment facility. We don't know if that's specifically going to be $11 million. It could be more, it could be less, but we know by that time, with our debt service falling off, that's probably a good point in time, or earliest point in time, where we're going to want to really do some major capital improvements with the sewer treatment. So that's not working for me. Greg, can you change the slides for me when I ask?
Under this one? Just
No,
to the
that's
slide?
Yeah. Alright, so this is what we have existing in debt service and capital expenses, less that emergency balance. So in the next few years, we have about $640,000 to $650,000 worth of debt service for the sewer enterprise fund alone. Then it starts falling off in 2019 pretty dramatically. By 2022, we're down just to $300,000, $150,000, and $60,000. And then after 2024, we don't have anything on the books right now for debt service. So, really we'd be okay. However, right now we're not collecting enough in those base charges and/or the surplus revenue that we're getting in the operating side to cover what we have currently. Even if we took out the capital improvement costs, we still don't have enough at the current rate, the $5.35 per unit, and even if we added in the apartments, we still wouldn't have enough to cover that debt service for next year. So we really do need to take a serious look at how those rates are going to have to increase to cover these costs. If they're not going to go up on the base charge, they're going to have to go up on the usage charge, and if they're not going to go up on either, and we're short, it's going to come from the general fund, and it's going to come from taxes. So, we really want these funds to operate on their own with their own revenue that they're billing out to their customers for the usage and the bases every single month. So, this is kind of what's looming for us with the rate structure that we're at right now. So if you go to the next slide, Greg. So if we don't do anything, this is what's going to happen to the improvement fund balance, which will hopefully start at about $1.1 million at the beginning of 2016. So these are the year-end balances of that improvement fund with no changes in the rates. Currently we're adding 5%, but if you don't do anything, this is what's going to happen. And if you only did 5%, it isn't even going to come close. So next year, we still have some balance left, and in 2017, it's down to almost nothing. By 2018, we keep steadily dropping and falling off. And then when you add in the new debt service that we're going to anticipate in 2022, we really don't have any new revenue to compensate for those new expenses. So it's really a pretty dire circumstances if we don't do anything with the rates. Go to the next slide, please. So this is what adding in the apartments. It does kind of sustain us a few more years. It stretches it out a little while longer, but again, by 2020, we're in the hole. Next slide. So if we move to this is what we were presenting when we first talked about the rates, what staff was recommending. If we move to a $7.50 the first year, $10 the second, $12.50, and up to $15, which we really need to be to cover the existing debt service and what's kind of coming up for us, we do drop from the 1.1 down to 800, and then again we drop in 2017. But by 2018, things start going back up. So we sustain that kind of improvement fund balance that we really want to have for cash flow purposes. We want to make sure that we have it in case of some emergency situations that happen with the treatment. So we do have those funds there, and then they steadily start climbing until we get to the 2024 range, and then they'll start to balance out because the new debt service and the new capital improvements in that time, we'll kind of balance ourselves out. So it is some deficit spending in the early years, but we're tapering up these rates in order to get to where we need to. But we do get to a point and where you do sustain a fund balance level that we can probably live with. So go to the next slide. So if we go kind of in the middle ground to what is actually approved at $15 and start at 10 the next year, and then go to $12.50 and 15, we do drop off in the first 2 years, but then we're back up and we actually get up to a much higher levels in the 2022 range. So it's not falling that steep a drop, but we do get back up to where we need it in a quicker time frame. Next one. And then this is what was actually approved with the 2015. There's actually no drop off in the first year, and it just steadily climbs until we get to the 2022 when the new debt service kicks in, and then it'll be a sustained level moving on from there. Next slide. So this is the other underlying question that's out there. We talked about when David John was here, he was talking about what's the best financing mechanisms for infrastructure. Well, it's really in the Public Facilities Authority, clean water and drinking water revolving loan funds. And that's typically, you can qualify and pretty easily get 1% 20-year dollars. So if you had an $11 million project, that's this blue column, the new debt service that we would add on is about $600,000. If it's $20 million, which it very well could be, depending on what the MPCA and the regulations are at the time, it's $1.1 million. So if you're at 4% for 30 years, 11 million, it's only another 30,000, but it's another almost 50,000 in at that percentage rate. But if you go with what we've kind of typically been at without trying to get state-backed loans, the PFA loans, and we just did what we've typically done going out to market at 3% for 15 years, that's 900,000 to 1.6, depending on the cost of the project. So if we couldn't qualify for any loans, and this is just what we had to go and get on the open market, that's what we would be paying. So we really want to think smart about how we both plan for the improvements, understanding the length of how long those improvements are supposed to last without changes in variables that are beyond our control, in order to kind of finance those to ensure that we're financing them through their existing life and beyond. So go to the next slide. So in order to generate that much revenue, right now at $15 base revenue, we'd have enough to cover those new debt service payments, that kind of 4,000 customers. If we go up to 20, 25, 30, 35. So if we were just going on to the open market and doing the sewer projects basically at our 3% 15 years, we need $35 a month from everybody to do a $20 million project. That's what we don't want to get to in 2022. So So where do we compare at $15 a month to the other communities similarly sized throughout the state with some similar treatment facilities? Well, not every community is created equal. This is a combination of both the usage charge based on 5,000 gallons per month and the base charges that these communities pay. So right now at $15 a month, the residential customers would pay the third highest among these kind of other communities. So the other highest would be Litchfield, and then Wilmer just put in a $20 million plus facility, and a portion of their of their base charges every month is only for debt service. They're paying $20 a month on every residential customer just for debt service, and then they have another base charge for the capital improvements, and then they have their usage charges, which have been going up. So, and the scary part is that they're facing some permitting regulations that already takes their plant out of compliance. That's why it's very important to keep on top of those permits. So go to the next one, Craig. So at commercial, some communities do have commercial meter sizes at higher base charges than on the sewer side as well as the water. So on the commercial, commercial customers are in and amongst the the median, with some really higher communities like Wilmer and Waseca that have some larger base charges for that added meter set. And this is also adding in the usage rate, estimating 5,000 gallons. I know our commercial customers with an 1.5 inch meter is probably not going to be using 5,000 gallons. They're probably going to be using a lot more, but it was just a kind of a baseline reading that I was utilizing that was in same comparison to another regional survey that went out for other communities. So, next slide. So when you add in both water and wastewater, where do we sit? Well, we're kind of on the commercial side. We're kind of back in that middle range. So this is again for an 1.5 inch meter with our new base charges that we have on the multipliers. And again, we're kind of in that median range. Some communities, Crookston's way down. I don't know why. They probably got some really old treatment facilities, or they're getting surface water or something really cheap up there. But I wouldn't expect them to be where they are in 5 years from now. So next one. So then if you look at the just for water for our residential customers, again we're kind of in that middle tier with the way the rate changes are.
And that's including the usage as well, correct?
Yep, that's including usage. Yep, this is both base and usage. All of these are base and usage. So then in the commercial with the new water meter charges, we're in the upper tier, but we're still not to some of the larger communities like Brainerd, East Grand Forks, Fergus, Marshall, which has a very similar treatment facility method to us. I don't know how old their plant is, but they do old lime softening treatment system. So they're at $70 a month combined for that commercial customer. They're at 5,000 gallons. So this is what it looks like for the $15 base wastewater base that was approved and that we're going to bring up for discussion again tonight. And where do we sit for everything, looking at residential and commercial with a combined monthly bill. So and 5,000 gallons of consumption. We're kind of right in that, we're in that upper tier for the residential again, but we're kind of in the middle tier for some of this commercial customers. And then that's where it would drop if we went to $10. Kind of drops us down into that a little bit closer to the middle tier for the residential customers. It doesn't make a huge impact to the commercial. That's what I have for those. Are there any other questions? Bottom line is that I don't think we can live on 5% increases to the base charge or the usage charges alone. We really do need to scale up the rates at a much more dramatic level. And I know it seems like it would be a hard increase to handle, but it is something that it's very serious to work on. And that's just with the existing stuff alone. That's not with future improvement costs. And then by the time the existing debt service does fall off, you're going to want to make some new improvements to the plant, because it was originally built in 1954.
The original was correct.
About major improvements every 20 to 30 years after that.
84 was the next one after that, yep.
Yeah, so we're past 30 years of major improvements. And so, we're going to look at all options at different, methods of treatment. What's the most cost-effective, long-term, the effective, hopefully regulation-proof, but it's going to be a significant expense down the road.
Well, this has been brought up in past years, and we didn't have LGA, so it was kind of hard to slap the community with an extra burden at that time. So there's a few years we kind of just tried to keep it right at even. And but sooner or later, we're going to have to pay for this. If we don't step it up right now, I feel personally, we're going to have to really push it to the community. We could all sit here and say, in 8 years maybe we're not here, so why even worry about it? But somebody has to make the decision then. We have to look into the future, and I feel $15 is a fair price. It is an increase, but it's preparing us for the future.
By this time next year, will we have better estimates from the engineering firm that's working on that?
Yes, for the long-term cost, but we still have an existing debt service right now, and at the current monthly rates, we're deficit spending that improvement fund balance to pay that debt service. So that $1.1 million that we have in the improvement fund is going to go down without, if you didn't raise it to $15.
If we go to 750 or 10, and we find out for next year, no, it's going to be 20 million instead of 11, then we can look at doing it more quickly. And if they say, good news, the state was kind in their permitting stuff, it's only going to be 11.
Yeah, if it's 11, we can, the $15 will, hopefully 7, 8 years from now will be where we need to be. But if it's more than that, like I showed you, for every $1 million you go up, that's another buck on that.
What you're saying is the $15 is just going to get us to the 11.
11 million, so if it's 20 million, then we're $15 a month charge, yes.
Then we still have to kick it up more.
If we go from 5 to 10 this year, we can look at it again next year.
Mr. President, first of all, I apologize to the council because on a 7-to-1 vote, I didn't bring it back because I think I'm doing that right. That's not the purpose. I just thought that we could do a little more discussion. The last meeting was a long meeting, and all the talk that we had in the planning part of it, a lot of it had been based around going 750 at the previous meeting. And, so then when the motion came up, it caught me kind of by surprise, and my reasons were that's almost triple of what the base rate was, and double the amount that was in our resolution. And the other part is, to me, John has done a great job with this, and Greg, and they've got some great numbers here, and Lori, and brought us some good information that shows us how bad the need could possibly get to be. But it also shows, our paperwork here, which 6 and 7 kind of confused me. These 2 pages don't
Make sense.
They don't seem
They don't add up to me either.
Because 6, when we started at 750, and 16, and go up 250 a year, and 7, we start at 10 and go up 250 a year, and it shows that we raised more by starting at 750 than we did with starting at 10.
Oh, yeah, probably because I may have included some percentage increases beyond the 15 for that, and I may have only had 15 flat moving forward.
Okay.
So
I was just looking at it and go with the 750 we made.
It's like the 750 plus the 5% increases or whatever that you were discussing.
So the 2022 is 5% moving forward after that. So I apologize that.
Yep, that's all right. And the other point I was making is that we get a new city administrator in. He's here a very short period of time. He brings us great information. I don't want the public perception to be okay. you know, this guy's gonna cost us a fortune. And that's not a reason to vote no or vote yes. John's done a great job with presenting. We did something for the cable access TV channel, and John did a great job with that. I just think to triple anything, and it shows that we can get fairly healthy by going with the 10 or 10, 12.50 and moving up, like we could survive or we could adjust. I just think starting with tripling the rate is, because we can say if we get it up there high enough, we can always go down, but most people know that politicians don't typically back off on any rates to save the money. So that's why I asked to bring it back. And believe me, if it gets the 6 votes needed to pass it again tonight, I'll keep my mouth shut, I promise.
Well, one of the things too is, you know, I think some of this information, the public needs to be more aware of this. There's a lot of people that I've talked to haven't a clue. So what do you mean? What do you mean? It's like, then you start explaining it to them and they're like, oh, okay. You know, there's 2 ways of looking at it. You know, Social Security got no raise this year, so we've got a lot of people that are like on a totally fixed income, and you bump them up that big of a thing. It's scary, but that's a, you know, one-time shot and you're done, or whatever. Then the other option is you go, well, we're going to bump it up $2 this year, and then next year $2, and next year $2, and next year $3. You know, every year for 5 years, my bill keeps going up. What's going on here? So it's, you know, you want to hit it right now. You know, if we can do the $10, I'm kind of leaning towards that aspect of it because it's not as bad. But I think the quicker we get to that point, and then say, okay, we can stabilize those rates, and then hopefully just continue on without any major expectation. You know.
Yeah. Either way, whatever happens, I mean, $15 is kind of the target number for what we have in existing and what we hope best case. You know, I guess well, there's probably another better case scenario, but a projected case scenario right now is we're going to need $15 a month per unit to pay for the debt service and capital improvements that we move forward. So, you know,
the thing is,
we got a little bit of time considering where the improvement fund balance is now, but if you don't do anything, it's gone, and then it's back on tax.
let's just we do $10 here, or we do a 10% levy, or 7% levy. You know, either way, you know, money's coming from somewhere to rebuild this plan, because it's coming. It's not if, it's when.
I don't like the idea of using levy. It's supposed to sustain itself. So when you start talking about levy, when we might have to levy, well, for the water, for other things, I don't like that. You know, I like to steer away from that. So
we're making in every fund, you know, that's an enterprise fund that can generate its own revenue. We're working very hard to get those all operating.
Which is the way it should be. I don't think we should go to 11 either. But I do think if we went at 10, 12, 15, 17, 50 or whatever, in 4 years to ease the pain a little bit, otherwise it's effectively almost $120 a year increase per resident. And I know we need it, I understand that, but I just think there's a less painful way to get to it. I'm just glad at least we had a lot more discussion this time than after that evening. And so whatever comes out, comes out.
Well, just like I told you too, Mr. Mayor, I would much rather see this on the front page of the Morrison County Record.
Yeah.
That the mayor vetoed the levy or the increase to get the public's input back, but you didn't see that.
Do we have a comparison on base over to other communities? Was it in here?
Yeah,
just
base. I mean, they're not included just with the base. They are with the usage rates.
I saw that. But is our base as it stands right now? It just seems awfully low.
It is really low. Yes, and that regional study that I was talking about, ours is one of the lowest.
Because currently we're what, 555?
535.
I was trying to find it on. I have an acquaintance share a utility bill from the city of Jordan, and it was just asked. I think it was base charge for sewer was $27.50.
That is not outside of what's out there. No.
This would put us to about 20, 50, 15.
It's not a
No,
15
it's
increase.
up to $15, not 15 on top of what we already have. It would be $15 at a per unit.
So at 965
Yes.
or whatever we'd be at.
Yeah.
But at 10 and then 1250, we'd kind of be in, you know, when you and I looked at that together.
Yeah.
You know, we're not going to be
Yeah.
on the bottom
Yeah.
at 1250
No.
or 10.
No, you're back in the middle tier range, but comparable.
Yeah, not 15 on the base rate.
But if you're 15 and in 7-8 years, it can have, you know, sustain a major renovation and not have to raise beyond that, then you're sitting really well. You know, that's the other side of the coin, is that if you can get to the point where these rates do go up, you take off existing debt service and you add on new debt service that isn't beyond what you're currently paying, you're ahead of the game. You know, you're not compounding that cost. So it isn't like you know, unfortunately I had the numbers screwed up because I had the 5% increase in it because we're, you know, maybe costs are projecting to go beyond that, but you know, I really don't think that you would need to be raising 5% on $50 every year. You would have some pretty modest increases.
Should be able to
beyond
find
that.
out.
If you're fortunate enough to get into the $11 million with the 1% one-year financing, something else changes, that, you know, that variable changes, then, yeah, then $15 may not be. But that's 7 years from now.
Hopefully we can make it out more. Anyone else got any questions, comments?
On a couple of your slides, you showed a different base fee based on their water meter size. That was not part of what we did last time, was it? They were all the same. Someone with a 1.5-inch water meter still pays the same base fee for wastewater, don't they?
Yes, yes. Yep, I was showing the same, everybody would be still at the same base fee regardless of meter size. When I'm showing comparable cities, they do have some, not all, not as many as, well, a lot more do it on the water, but not everybody that does for water does it for sewer too. But some do change having a higher base fee for a larger meter size for those customers.
But then theoretically, if they have a larger wastewater line, then we're getting it on the operating side from
Yes, from the usage.
their water meter and their calculation.
And our usage charges are, you know, are definitely high, but they are covering what our operating expenses are. You know, we do that. You know, what I was showing is taking that surplus from the operating side too and adding it back into covering our debt service costs as well, and we're still falling short.
And the thing with the new plan, operating costs may go up, or
Possibly. There are some methods that could drop it down dramatically if we could find them.
right.
But it's not everything is as easy as it looks on paper.
Anyone else? Now we'll move on to camera and park donations.
Next one that we've got on the agenda is Cameron Park. In your packet, we've got kind of a layout of what the donation they would like to make to the city to have placed at Cameron Park. If you can see, you know, it kind of looks like this has all the different partners that they're looking at doing. They're looking at making it in granite, so we wanted to kind of get your thoughts on it before they etched anything. Don't look at the screen, that's not that one. But do you guys have any thoughts on that particular layout or language or anything like that before they make the formal donation to the city?
Is this a one-time donation for this?
It'd be a one-time donation. They would like to have it placed at Cameron Park.
And it's based on all these entities donated to get that done? Are they participating in it with the park? Or
All these entities that are in here have either donated materials or helped out with the Live Better, Live Longer, that the community gardens over there has.
How big a thing is this supposed to be? Do we know?
It was 38 by, I think, 18 inches, I think you said. Just a slab that would go on the ground.
Make it flat?
Yeah.
Anyone?
So in the future, if someone donates even more than what these groups have, are you gonna add to it?
In addition to onto that park there, I mean, that's a possibility.
That doesn't affect signage?
It's part of the city park, so
City, yeah, city property, so it'd be exactly correct.
And this is the ones that originally participated.
That is
So
correct.
they actually got it going.
Yeah.
So I had more of a flavor for that than an advertisement of, anytime somebody wanted to buy the block on, in the same area, these are ones that originated it. I think that makes more sense.
These are all pretty much nonprofit groups.
I wouldn't say that.
ProBuild's probably the only one, but they probably threw in the materials for the shed. Okay.
Anyone else? Alley, Block 101, Terrace Edition.
If you recall back a couple of meetings ago, we discussed alley in Block 101 of Thayer's Edition. To give you some perspective, 7th Avenue Southwest is on the north, 8th Avenue Southwest is on the south side, and you've got 6th Street and 7th Street with the block. There's a number of larger oak trees back in through here. We did send out letters to the adjoining property owners on that entire block to see what their thought was in terms of do they want an alley installed or do they want it vacated? Because currently we do plow in through here. It's kind of a cart path, and you'll see that in the next slide here. We do plow in through here, but with our equipment, it's extremely tight. Once we get our new plows and stuff, that will not be able to fit back in through here. And looking at this really isn't conducive to plowing. So we're either going to want to make it an alley and actually plow it so that people can use it, or turn it back over to the residents for their use. So the results of that survey from those residents, 4 responded in favor of constructing an alley, and 2 responded in favor of vacating it, so reverting it back to the property owners. So we have basically one of 2 choices. Do we want to proceed to install that alley, or do we want to proceed to vacate the alley? Now, if we go to the vacation, we'd have to start the process of notifying the residents, have a public hearing, so that they can give their input on it. I think even if we decide to install the alley, we want to have a public hearing just so that they're aware of what's going on. They are aware something is going on just because of the letter going out, but it would be good to have that public hearing and actually notify them this is what we're looking at doing. We don't have to have the public hearing to install it because we're not assessing them for that component of it, but I think it's good public relations just to do that as well. So is there any thoughts from the council, questions about this, kind of giving us direction on which way we would like to move on this?
Did somebody need an alley for access?
The property owner to the south here, they do currently use this. They have a lean-to on the back that they get into. So they would still need to have that access. We would be, if we vacated it, we would be vacating the east half of that property to that property owner. Whether that's enough to get into that lean-to, I can't say. I have not platted that out to verify or not, but looking at 4 that were in favor of constructing it, I didn't really see the need to necessarily explore that option just yet.
That's facing north, right?
This is facing north, correct?
Okay, and when you get past the tree, you can see there, I drove by and looked, yeah, you're pointing, big trees
There's a
back
big
there.
tree right there, and there's a big tree right over there, yeah. 2 very big oak trees.
Which I'm sure the neighbors don't want to see go, some of them.
Some of them don't want to see go, some of them want to see go. Because as you can imagine, there's quite a few leaves that come down from there, and somebody gets to clean them up.
You said you're going to come up with a cost.
We can come up with a cost to do that.
it would be a little better to make the decision then when we see what the cost is, because well, there's a lot of other places in town, we're not even working on main streets and that, and stick money into an alley might not be the most.
The thing is with this one, we're either gonna make it an alley or we're gonna vacate it, because we can't continue to plow that the way it is. Because otherwise we're gonna start damaging our equipment because the trees are in the way that they are.
Well, I drove by it today and I drove through it, and
It's a cart path.
it is. It's a, like an old trailer you had back on the farm, where you bob around the trees too.
Exactly.
And I'm not saying I'm in favor of it or against it, but I definitely think either we need to do something with it. I mean, either make it an alley or otherwise don't have anything.
How do the addresses sync up?
In terms of in favor or not in favor?
Yeah. Well, primarily the ones in favor of vacating the alley. Are any of those blocked?
The two on the north end were in favor of vacating.
Okay, they're on an end, on a corner.
The two on the north end up here were in favor of vacating it.
Okay.
Just going from memory, I believe it was these two that wanted to install the alley. I don't know if these individuals had anything, if they responded or not.
The one mid-block is at 810?
I don't know.
The one in the middle of the block was.
Maybe on the east side, be this one here, that would probably be 10. That's the even side of it.
And that's where the trees are.
Yeah, in this stretch in here.
Okay.
One of the people in favor of an alley, their property doesn't even touch the alley, does it?
Over on this side.
Yes.
Correct.
So it's almost a 50-50. Oh, no, 60-40.
Are you able to click on that block? I mean, that's,
Let me pull up each once.
oh, I thought you were just gonna hover over it.
No, I
don't.
I don't have that
Okay.
pulled up.
Well, it's kind of like the mailboxes on 10th Street. I don't like when we ask residents a question and then
Do the opposite.
not pay any attention to what it was.
Looks like there's a few alleys not being used in that neck of the woods.
There's another room. Yep.
Well, there's a number that are though, too.
There's a number that are being used, and there's a number of them that clearly are not.
But you look there at the one on the north that's in favor of vacating the alley, and there was vehicles parked in the middle of the alley. So, what does that tell you? Obviously, they're using it.
Well, unless I hear an objection here, I think I'll proceed based on what the majority of the residents indicated. I'll bring back the cost, obviously, to do that. Probably just move forward with getting that notification out to letting them know that that's what we're proposing and doing, so that they are aware of it. And we can go to the council to get pricing for get that installed.
Well,
Isn't it already on the agenda?
That's not on the agenda.
Oh.
What else is it involved in doing that? Cutting down the trees?
Cutting down the trees, removing the topsoil, bringing in class 5 to a width of 16 feet, and then that's the extent of it. That would be the alley at that point. And turf restoration for anything that we disturb on the edges.
There's no drainage issues or anything.
Not that I'm aware of.
I think the biggest thing there is to get out the stumps and the roots from the big trees.
That'll be the challenge, yes.
Anything else? Living streets?
Living streets, this is kind of a precursor to all of the feasibility reports that we have tonight. We didn't specifically say it in there, and this is more of a recap of what actually the city of Maplewood, they've got a policy on living streets. What I'm looking at doing is trying to get the neighborhood streets, the local streets, those that are lower volume, a little bit more friendly, user-friendly, traffic calming, reduce the speeds, try to minimize the potential for hazards that the children playing around there would have to see. So living streets, what that encompasses is really a couple things. Making the corridors a little bit more friendly to walking and biking as well as to automobile traffic. You know, you think about it, back in the day, the corridors going from MnDOT all the way down to the county, township, and the city was all about moving vehicles in and out. That's all it was really used for. Well, times have kind of changed. More people have gone away from the cars and they're starting to do a little bit more biking and walking. And so we're trying to change the way that we do our corridors to also take that into account. You know, living streets, you know, we improve the stormwater quality by reducing the pavement width. You don't have as much impervious surfacing, you don't have as much movements coming off the street. Reduce the life cycle cost because once you replace it, you don't have as much to remove, you don't have as much to put in. As well as improving the neighborhood aesthetics. You can think about giving the neighbors a little bit more room to plant trees, use, that type of thing. And again, this was all from the city of Maplewood, just kind of looking at what they've done in the past, to try to kind of look at what we may be wanting to do with our streets. So, comparing living streets to complete streets, you know, we've kind of heard that buzzword of complete streets in the past. Looking at complete streets, they want all users and all modes of transportation, including automobile, pedestrian, bicycle, public transportation, and all others. We don't necessarily know what the all others are going to be. Is it going to be a Segway or a hoverboard or anything like that? With living streets, you focus more on the walking and biking as well as the automobiles, as opposed to everything. So you narrow down your focus on what you're looking at creating. Both of them have traffic calming as well as the reduced life cycle costs as well as the increased safety and security of the streets. So that's kind of why I tended to go more towards the living streets as opposed to the complete streets component of it. So looking at kind of these example sketches of what living streets would look like, you know, up on the top, this is a schematic here of the roadway corridor with sidewalks and stuff on the edge. The little bit more telling picture is here on the bottom. This is a picture that was taken in North St. Paul, and much of this was from North St. Paul's living street plan that they had. They did a rendering of what it could look like with a complete streets application. You'll notice you're standing in the same position on both of them here and here. They narrowed up the road, but then they put curb and gutter on this side as well as on the right side. And then we're able to add, you know, the sidewalk and the boulevard trees into there. Just makes it a little bit more inviting to drive down. Now, one of the things that I'll point out, you know, where this can apply, you look at where the houses are at. You know, we've got good setbacks on both sides of the roads. The properties aren't using the road for parking, and they're not necessarily using the right-of-way area in their driveway for parking. They all have the proper parking, like we say in our ordinance, 2 off-street parking stalls, which is required. A lot of the older parts of town don't really have that. You know, they still park on the street, which they can if the houses were built before the time that code came into place, but our code does require 2 off-street parking stalls. So we're trying to work with that to bring that into compliance. So again, the low volume roads and areas where we've got sufficient parking for it. So looking at, again, City of Maplewood, what their typical sections could look like. One thing I'll point out, they've got a couple of options for their local streets at 26-foot wide streets. Personally, I think 26 is too narrow, but their streets are 26 feet wide. They've got sidewalk on either one side or 2 sides. You'll see the next slide. And then they've got a depressed boulevard to allow for infiltration for plantings as well as rainwater infiltration. This is the next one. The only difference that they added here is the second sidewalk on the street. But again, it's still 26 feet wide is what they're looking at utilizing. So on their larger streets, again, this is a local street. They're looking at 28 to 30 foot streets, no sidewalks. You'll notice they've got a little note down here at the bottom. Sidewalk is required if street abuts or is in the vicinity of a school or park. So wherever there is a need for that walking or biking traffic, that's where they add the sidewalks as well as the wider roadways. Now, they've got another type of street that they call a local connector. It's not their local road, which is a low volume, it's the local connector. It's those streets that bring everybody out to the higher volume roads. So this would be like our Edmund Street, 4th, 6th Street, that type of road. But you'll notice they went from 26 to 28 feet wide. They only bumped it up 2 feet. Again, I think that's a little bit too narrow just because of the volume of traffic that we see on them. But it seems to be working for them down there in terms of the narrow roads. Personally, I like 32 feet as our roadway width. It kind of has a couple of benefits. It does reduce the pavement, it does reduce the amount of stormwater that's coming off of them. But when we go to plow them, our plows can plow 15 feet in one direction. Normally, we don't plow right up to the edge of the curb because it damages the curb. So if you plow one side at 15 feet, the other side at 15 feet, you cleared 30 feet of the road, you've got a foot past that to get to the curb so you don't damage it. You cleared your road in one pass, one up and one down, as opposed to going back. You've got a 36-foot wide, you're going back a couple of times just to make sure you've got all the road cleared off. So there is some efficiencies narrowing that up to what our plows can handle. Just another option that they've got here. Again, they still have the 20-foot wide roadway. So that's kind of the precursor on the living streets. You know, that's what we were kind of looking at when we started looking at our feasibility reports for this coming year, as well as what we looked at last year. Any questions on that before we jump into the?
Greg, with the living streets, and a big part of that is no parking on the street. Because if we got to 28, I've seen even with our 32.
28, you wouldn't be able to have parking.
Okay.
Again, it kind of goes back to proper setbacks, having the 2 off-street parking stalls for the properties, which gets them then off of the street and over to it. 32 does allow for parking on streets because we do have some of those parts in the older part of town where they still use the street as parking.
No questions?